Are we live? Hello, everybody. It is Friday night. There is something just rolls off the tongue about saying it's Saturday night. Welcome. It's Saturday night. The SNL people picked the right day, but it doesn't matter. It is Friday night, and we're cooler. Me, you, my guest. This is the place to be this Friday night. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope more and more of you pour in. Please do share the link, share in your profile if you're watching on LinkedIn or Twitter. Tweet us, retweet us, quote us, whatever the lingo is these days. And welcome to the Smart Self live stream. I am honored to have you here today. It has been a hustling kind of week for me. I hope y'all have been feeling in your elements, feeling good, delivering, just in that sweet spot. If you are in Toronto, in Ontario, I haven't caught up on all of the latest COVID updates in all places of the world. But if you are in Ontario, there was a press conference not long ago that introduced some very strict restrictions. And so you probably don't have anything else to do tonight. So please join us. We would be happy and honored to have you. Also, call out, please comment, please ask us your questions, bring us your attention, your inquisition. Let us know what it is you want to know. I am literally here for you. I am so here for you. I'm here for you in a completely selfish way. I want to be clear about that, because I get excited about seeing people have aha moments, see people grow, see people challenge, see people engaged. I just love interacting with people. You guys give me energy. And so I'm literally at your disposal. Please send in your questions. Please send in your comments whenever possible. Unfortunately, not every tech cooperates with the system that I'm using, but most of your comments will pop up on screen, and then anytime possible, I will share them. I will put you in the hot seat and make sure everyone sees your question and your name and all of that. And it just makes me feel very, very special. So thank you. Smart Self live stream tonight. It is, I always have to look at the date because I am terrible about details. It is Friday, April 16th, sweet number. And I'm really excited to have you here today. For anybody who has dared to read my risque description of the show tonight, we're talking about self-limiting beliefs and leaving them behind. I'm not going to read the description. So if you want to hear what I thought was risque, you're going to have to read it out loud yourself. Okay. So check that out. I am super, super excited today to have a special guest with me from the West Coast. I am going to introduce my friend, Bridget Tritt. How are you, Bridget?
Hey, hi, Juliana. How are you? Thank you so much for having me here today. So excited to be speaking on this topic and seeing you again. So yeah, it's going to be great. So excited. What a great way to spend Friday. Wow.
Yeah, well, we all need a little bit of a energy boost, and it always feels good to fulfill your purpose. And I think you and I are both pretty hot and bothered about the topics that we're talking about today. Is that fair?
Yeah, we love them. Yeah, we're definitely passionate about them, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So let's introduce you to the audience. These folks have heard me drone on, but they don't know you. So tell me, Bridget, let's start with simple. What is it that you do?
So what I do is I actually work as a mindset acceleration mentor. So really what I do is I help people through coaching, consulting, and also transformational coaching. So some hypnotherapy as well. And I basically help people accelerate and get them to their goals really, really fast. Mm-hmm. So my practice is really about empowering people, making them really resilient, giving them the tools and the resources so my clients can remain calm in situations even of chaos, and they know what to do to tap into their personal empowerment and make whatever happen for themselves that they want. So it's really rewarding work. I like to call myself the good news person, because all of my clients that eventually move on and are completely in their own self-empowerment, I'm helping them on that happy trail and healing trail as well. So yeah, really happy to be doing the work. It's extraordinarily rewarding, and the transformations are awesome.
For sure. It sounds like it. And the thing that is, I'm going to kind of hook into for a second here, is the idea of acceleration. It sounds to me that we, somewhere deep inside, at our core, we know who we are. And sometimes it can take us a while to get there. It doesn't sound like you are transforming someone into something they're not,
right?
But rather helping them find it faster. Is that a fair way of summing it up?
Absolutely. Well, the thing with acceleration, people are too busy nowadays. People want rapid change. They don't want to sit with a counselor for 7 years, rehashing, when they didn't get their bike when they were 7 years old and how they dislike their mommy and daddy. People really want to start to see, massive forward movement quickly. And so, this process and this type of transformative coaching that I do gets my clients there fast. So not only that, they are then empowered with, a flock of new beliefs, which basically provides a quantum leap to where they want to land. So that's pretty much it. It's really taking yourself and really stepping into your purpose. Yeah, so it's great.
I love that. Okay, what made this your purpose? So let's go into the why. How did you get here?
Well, you know what? I am an ex-banker. Yeah, I know. It's super
of course,
exciting.
Totally natural path.
Yeah, really exciting role. However, I was a very happy banker for a very long time. So really, I mean, cliche would have it that I'm an ex-9-to-5er. I work for very, very good companies here in Canada and the United States. And really, I loved my job. It was fun. It was rewarding. It was great helping people. However, after, almost 2 decades of doing that, personally, I was just getting to a point where I had helped thousands and thousands of people, get into their homes, refinance, and, made, probably hundreds of millions of dollars for the organizations that I worked for. And it was just not exciting for me anymore. There wasn't kind of that reward or feeling anymore. And so for me, I also started to discover, as I was moving toward, let's just call it the end date, that, I'm more of an out of box thinking person. And so for me, as I evolved as a person, I just felt the kind of restrictions in the banking environment. And I realized that, I actually wanted to explore something that was going to provide some passion and excitement that's, a little bit more entrepreneurial. I didn't realize when I had stepped out of banking that it was something entrepreneurial that I was looking for. So what I did is I actually started to travel, because I love to travel. So I've been, I've been a lot all through Canada, US, Europe, Africa. I've done a lot of traveling, and it made me respect a lot of different cultures, races, religions, and has allowed for an enormous amount of tolerance and stuff like that, even before I began traveling. However, during my travels, what I realized, just by casually sitting down and talking to people, men and women, is that a lot of people were really stressed out.
Yes.
I mean, really, tired.
For sure. And so I'll just jump in quickly and ask, did you find any pattern? Was that mostly in North America or in Europe or Africa? Was this universal?
It was, and it was the same across boards, meaning it was men and it was women. So, the men were, kind of stressed in a different way, whereas women, everyone had this kind of exhausted
Hmm.
stories about their busy lives and
Yes.
how they weren't celebrating anything that they had accomplished, getting a promotion, oh, just brushed it off. And so what I started to realize after this time of traveling, that what, I had been doing coaching before,
Hmm.
and after this, I realized, what? I actually can help these folks. I
Yes.
can actually help, the men and the women that are really, what they're really needing or looking for is either a program or direction on how they can provide themselves more self-care, self-love, more awareness, self-discovery, more
Sure.
understanding.
So it's interesting because sometimes, even when you have, even when you're one of those folks that's blessed enough to have good self awareness, sometimes we need to look in a mirror, right, in order to see what we need to do. And it sounds to me like, as you saw these folks who were able to talk about their busy lives and their extensive contribution, it paled in comparison to what they were capable of and their impact and what they were meant to be and do and all of that. And was that a reflection for you?
Well, yeah, it was definitely. I think that what was very interesting is that, a lot of people are spending a lot of their time pleasing other people.
Mm-hmm. I know I'm guilty of that.
Guilty.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really guilty of
And a
that.
lot
And
of men too. A
sure.
lot of men do it too. And so that became to me what I saw as a reoccurring theme. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, what I would really call on the brink of, really like on brink of a more of like burnout.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way of summing that up. So
Yeah.
I want to ask, if there was a moment in your travels, a moment, a place, an interaction. Was there something that just solidified this all for you? Something that painted that perfect picture of clarity?
Well, yes, yes and no. But what really happened is that when I was in Canada, same thing happened, and these were, people that I had met anywhere from traveling on the bus, maybe at a training or whatever, a sales conference, where I actually started to talk about conversations that were not related to the busyness of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually tried to turn the conversations into other topics. However, they were constantly overrun by this,
Hmm.
predominant feeling of um, maybe helplessness, again, exhaustion, and constantly not being able to practice proper boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
practice self-love. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up writing a book.
I love that. So tell me about the book. I can't read
Yes.
the title perfectly on screen, so call it out. Oh,
Yeah,
there we
so
go.
the book is called Self-Love Micro Steps.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I wrote this book was because of all of the folks, the men and the women, over those couple of years that I talked to, that really I felt needed a little bit of help just to even check in with themselves, like
Sure.
in just even self-awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
so really what the book talks about, in essence, the subtitle is A Simple, Easy, and Fun Way to Fall in Love with Yourself, is
Mm-hmm.
that was the biggest piece that was missing.
Yes.
So that was the gap, that not
The
people,
joy.
yeah, that people
Mm-hmm.
weren't really taking that time for self-care and self-love. And really, all we need to do is take a small micro step.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is something huge about that. I talk about that quite a bit. Just the ability to set goals that give us the chance to celebrate something quickly,
And there
right?
you go. Thank you, Juliana. Yeah,
Yeah.
you nailed it. That you
Mm-hmm.
nailed it. And that was what really precipitated writing the book. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people are really that familiar with micro steps. And
Sure.
so that just really locked it in. And I actually felt that I actually became also a character in the book because, I had gone through a little bit of a surprise separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had to reevaluate my life with two young children and go, okay, hold on. What am I going to do? Is this kind of chaotic loop just going to continue? And that's when I really took control of my life and ended up putting the book together as well.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And there are a couple of things that come to mind. One, I have a friend who is just an incredible person. I've asked her to be on the show, but she's actually working through some new theories and wants to be ready for joining me sometime. But she once called me and said, would you be a guinea pig for me? And can I coach you from a fitness perspective? And she knows we had lived together while we were doing our graduate degree. So she knows that I'm not the person who goes to the gym. I'm not the runner, and she's done Ironman. Like, she is impressive. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember actually when I gave birth to my now 2.5-year-old daughter, and she was 8 months pregnant. She jogged from her house to the hospital to come meet the baby. Okay. So this woman says, can I coach you? Can I be your fitness coach? And I'm like, well, you know what? If anyone can, sure, let's try it. And I'll never forget. Honestly, it changed my life. Like, our first few sessions were really her just asking me a lot of questions. But once she said, okay, let's start, her first instruction to me was, this week, I want you to spend 1 minute doing some sort of strength training every day. 1 minute. I succeeded, right?
And I bet you felt great, right?
I did feel great. And the really crazy thing is, well, once I was doing 1 minute, I would do 5.
Wow.
It was not a big deal. And I found that when I told myself I'm going to do 15 minutes, then I started to say, well, I don't really have time now. I'll find some time later. But I couldn't ever justify telling myself that I couldn't find 5 minutes. Right. And when I told myself my goal was to do 5 minutes each day, I usually did 20 or 30. And so 20 to 30 minutes of strength training each day for a person who didn't do anything, right? And it felt good. And I lost 10 pounds and I kept it off for over a year. And like, without any fluctuations, it was just natural. And this is, I want to try and I've forgotten your words. So please work with me here as I bring this back. We talked about joy and like just celebrating. And there are things that feel natural. And when something feels natural, it's more enjoyable. Yes. And it's easier to get that joy, celebrate that joy.
Yes.
So I'm curious about that aspect. Are we all just fighting our joy? Is that what's happening here?
Well, not exactly.
Okay, explain it.
This kind of is something that, is a little bit more layered. So okay. I'll kind of start with the beginning first. And that's just the obvious, we are just, when we're born and when, we're growing up in the years and we have our mom and dad and school and all that, that's really programming. So whatever goes into our mind, we just take it in. And so, we also go through, some ups and downs, even as children and teenagers and whatever. And we create these thoughts and beliefs about certain scenarios. So that's one thing. The other part that is going on right now, and again, this is happening both to men and women. However, women, I think, are suffering in silence a bit more, and men are finding different ways to release the stress. But it is actually happening to both sexes. One of them is people pleasing.
Yes.
It runs rampant. And so this idea where we are sacrificing ourselves on many different levels, and that could be psychological, emotional, physical, financial.
Sure.
With people, it really takes a strain on folks. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like isolation, again, suffering in silence. It also looks like resentment. All of a sudden, that person that keeps taking and taking and taking, you start to resent them. And also it's exhaustion. And so really, that's one thing. The other thing is the idea of perfection.
Yes.
Having that perfect body for a guy, having that being a perfect mom.
Yes.
To be a perfect mom, right? And then as a parent, I talk about what the super mommy and the super daddy, where they're just giving, overcompensating for the child, and then they're not even looking at their own needs. Maybe that's not even on the table, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's easy to understand or see these scenarios sometimes in a traditional adult, I'm a parent, I have people I need to please. But as a married woman with 2 children, something that's a bit foreign to me, well, quite foreign to me these days, is dating. And I have a friend who told my husband and I a story about his experience recently on a dating app. I don't remember which one. And essentially this woman messaged him and said, I've got 10 of you. Pitch me your date. And whoever comes up with the best date gets to take me out. And talk about pressure. You can't, in that scenario, this is somebody who can't even get companionship unless he, I don't know, is the most creative or spends the most or who knows what. And I think she was trying to be playful. I don't think she was trying to be hurtful at all.
No, I think she was being a bit too businesslike. I think that she's lost the essence of dating, which is a very organic exchange.
Connection.
Even if you know yourself, it's supposed to be natural. It's not supposed to be like a business plan.
Yes. Yeah, you shouldn't be racking your brain to see if your proposal is going to beat the competitors. That's fair.
Do you know what I mean?
That's totally fair.
We have to, yeah.
It's just interesting because I think there are so many ways that people-pleasing piece comes into play. So I'm curious if you can give us an example of somebody that you've worked with who has shifted from the pleasing of others, focused on alignment with self. And, does it really pay off? Or is it just like, the broke artist who's got some joy of his constantly saying, well, I wish I had that 9-to-5 paycheck. How does that play out?
Well, I think the other thing that I was just going to add really super quickly, Juliana, is that the other thing is that's also really challenging most people is that they are looking for validation outside of themselves.
Yes.
And so, people are desperate. They're so desperate. Did I do a good job? I'm a good daddy. I'm a good mommy. When really we need to be doing, this is all an inside job.
Yes.
And so really what I'd like to do is, yes, I have had clients, obviously, that have gone through that self-awareness. They have found, what it was that was self-sabotaging them, holding them back, and then released it. I typically give my clients a customized recording. They listen to that for 21 days. It's powerful new beliefs. It totally changes their mind. The mind loves repetition, and so they completely move into their alignment, and they experience a completely different life. Energetically, they're completely different. The way they manage themselves, their interactions with people, their relationships change. It's all super positive. What I really want to touch on is just some kind of tips on what
Yes,
we can
please.
do today, like even just right now, if someone's
Yeah.
listening and going, oh my God, that's me, what don't go away, what can I do? Number one, what you need to do is you need to give yourself permission to take time for yourself and self-care. This book that I wrote, Self-Love
Yes.
Micro Steps, self-love.
Yes.
Most people hear that and they're like, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But in their heart, they're kind of just, they're like, give that to me, yes.
Yeah.
So, familiarizing ourselves and really giving ourselves that kind of self-compassion and that gratitude and forgiveness to actually take a moment, be gentle with yourself.
Sure.
Stop the criticism.
Yes.
Most people are trying to be perfect, but what they're really doing is that they're kind of beating themselves up internally.
So it's very interesting, and I'm going to get personal for a second here. Both of my grandmothers grew up in a very poor region in Italy. Both were illiterate. One of my grandmothers and her sister tried to go to school.
Yes.
When they came home, their brothers had found out where they were that day, and they got the crap beat out of them for going. And my grandmother, her sister went back because she was an exceptionally hard-headed woman. My grandmother didn't. And I feel this personal responsibility to make the most out of every resource and every moment I have. And so instead of saying to myself, okay, I'm going to take time for self-care, I spend my life thinking, okay, well, how can I shave 30 seconds off of my morning routine so that I can be thinking about a blog post or spending more time with a client? But then the self-care gets sabotaged. Is there anything that you might say to me or anyone like me?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I think that's great. And I think that we'll just use that example, like, shaving off, 30 minutes or, whatever to be very focused and productive. Another way of looking at it or reframing that is, would you be open to maybe having someone else do that?
Maybe. The rules.
Right.
Playing, right? Yeah.
Right.
The rules, the script. Sure.
Yeah. So what I'm just proposing, would you be open to having somebody else do that for you? Are you open to delegate?
Yeah. I think so. And I think that I'm precious about, before I delegate, making sure that I know that it's going to be done okay. And I've learned a long time ago that I'm a perfectionist, and I heard a rule at some point in my life that perfectionists should stop at 70% when they think something's 70% there. And so that's what I challenge myself to do.
Good.
And there are some things I won't sacrifice. If it's a brand new brand that's going to be going public, I want to make sure it's pixel perfect.
Yes.
But a lot of things, no one notices that other 30% but me.
That's right.
Literally.
Yeah, and that's great. So doing those little internal challenges are fantastic. So, maybe just using that report as one is maybe you can do a fusion. You could actually combine it. You could, in fact, hand it to someone, where it's fairly inexpensive. You can actually have a contractor or something work with you over the next 3 or 6 months, really lock the blog in and your writing style or whatever, and maybe spend some time on tweaking it or getting it to where you want to go. However, when you look at that entire frame from beginning to end, you may have actually saved yourself 20 minutes. However, it will be prepared ultimately the way you want it. So you don't need to compromise your standards.
That's interesting.
So just, I don't know, this is organic, right?
Yeah.
So, just considering providing yourself different insights. And what I want to mention really, and I think this is a great transition, is that, considering a coach, considering a mentor, considering even a buddy system. And when I say coach or mentor, I don't necessarily say, go drill a hole into your savings and, get that mentor. What I'm talking about, you can even pick a mentor online. I've had a lot of mentors. I had Grant Cardone as a mentor for a bit. I've had, whoever. So those kinds of options to give yourself, to open up the perspective, allow yourself a different angle. Right? Give yourself a different angle, allowing yourself to do that. The biggest thing most people are struggling with internally right now are, this is my goal. I want to get it. I want to do that. And then when they look at themselves on, getting to that goal internally, now this is the private self-talk. So maybe family wouldn't even know this, or your friend or whatever, maybe a really good friend who you can just call and say, hey, this is who I am. And they're like, yes, I love you. Keep going. Keep going. We need to have those people in our lives too. That where you would just say, well, in your mind, you feel that you don't deserve it. Now, I'm not making an innuendo, Juliana. I'm saying that generally that's the gap that most people live in, where they're like, that's my goal, I'm going to go there. But in fact, privately, when they review their own self-esteem, self-esteem is how we think of ourselves and how we see ourselves. Yes. So you can be confident, doing all kinds of stuff, anybody. Great at my job, but when I get home, I feel I'm unworthy.
Yeah, for sure.
So these are the areas that we want to really examine, so we become more gentle with ourselves and have more joy and passion and adventure and fun in our lives, because it's hard to do those things when we're always beating ourselves up to get to the next goal.
That's totally fair. And so in terms of that self-acceptance, there's self-care. Is there, and it's possible you've already touched on these things, but I just want to capture them in little sound bites if possible. Are there other specific goals you would add to that in terms of, or not goals, but tips that you would add?
Yeah, so really the areas that I talk about in my book is really, we begin at self-awareness. Right? And then move into self-discovery and self-understanding, right? And then self-love. And then ultimately we move into self-mastery. I just want to jump back here and kind of give two more really super quick tips to the audience that are listening, and really kind of combating these areas of, looking for validation in someone else that might not give that to you, that kind of makes you feel, you don't feel good about yourself, is really becoming your own best friend.
Interesting.
When we just think about how we are, think about Juliana, you're a great mom, you're a good wife, and I know you're a really good friend. I'm sure to more than one person. And so, when we ask ourselves, when I ask myself, do I treat myself the same way I treat my bestie?
Yeah.
Do I treat myself the same way that I treat my children? Like, do I love myself unconditionally when I'm feeling, a certain way? Can I accept myself? Can I move into self-compassion?
Yes.
So that would be another thing to really begin to explore on your healing journey. And the last little tip that I had here was also really beginning to understand that perfectionism, it never ends. It's a really big job, and it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of work. and it never ends. So even if you just take an example of cleaning your kitchen, it's perfect. Even if it's perfect, like the cleaning lady came. But I'm going to tell you something. In 5 minutes, when the two kids come in, or my children, I have two children myself, it's going to be a little bit of a disaster. What's the point? We have to accept and understand, we as human beings, we're imperfect people.
Absolutely.
And we're having imperfect relationships.
Yeah.
And people, in fact, it's a secret, but not really. People don't like perfection. They don't like it. People don't want to be around perfect people.
Yes.
They want to be around relatable people.
Yes.
People want to have a deep connection with someone. They want to hear about their vulnerabilities. Even if you want to share a micro vulnerability, try that. You don't have to make a relationship. You meet someone and you dump, like a therapy session. But people, we need to understand that, everybody's flawed. We're all doing the best that we can, and that it's okay. Just relax, and we're kind of all in it together. So I just kind of wanted to wrap it up there, because I think that those can be good takeaways in a world that's, making our busyness our worthiness.
That's very, very powerful. We have a question here from Gabrielle. Thank you for the question. So what is a simple activity I can do daily to initiate my self-love journey? It's a great question.
That's an excellent question. So I would start by taking a review. I'm gonna actually take it right back to your self-awareness. I'd like to ask you, what are your passions? What comes easy for you? What lights you up? What is it that just puts that fire in your belly that you go, oh yeah, I love that?
Yes.
Or maybe do a recall. What did you really enjoy in your life as a young child or through your teens? Or simply take a look at your house. You might have that guitar that's sitting in that corner, or something that's your genius, where you actually feel that you can lose time in it, and do that every day. And so, that's something that you can do. So, go into a place, and this is individual, and I do talk about this in the book. So there is no specific idea, because we're all different.
Yeah, that's totally fair. But what I'm hearing you say that I think is quite powerful is it's so simple, it's almost easy to miss. Do what you love, right? And if that's sing in the shower,
totally,
take more showers,
100%. And I would do more of what you love. In particular now, I think that we're in an environment where a lot of people are feeling very, very restricted, and, have all kinds of views on what's actually happening, when actually you can make, joy happen at home. You can go for a walk in the park, begin to practice some gratitude. That also shifts our emotion, right?
For sure.
So, to address this is really what I would consider a self-love micro step. Start by doing something that lasts, like you said, I'm going to tie it right back to you, Juliana, 1 minute.
I like it. Something that lasts a minute that brings you some joy, little tiny bit of joy. Thank you, Gabrielle, for the question. And I had a little thing that there was one thing that you said earlier that I wrote down, but you kind of mentioned something now that I want to and maybe this is maybe even this is just one of those things that we all need to walk away with and think of a little bit. We're all, as human beings, prone to look for someone to blame. The fact is, if it's someone else's fault, then it's not mine. It's not my fault. And when it's my fault, there's a great discomfort with that, and this self-sabotaging fear that I'll never be able to solve it. But you said earlier, this is all an inside job.
Mhm.
And I just found that to be very powerful, because
Mhm.
even if someone is giving you a hard time or standing in your way,
Mhm.
in what ways,
Mhm.
are we allowing it, or can we change it?
Of
How
course.
can we completely rewrite the narrative?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think the way to rewrite the narrative is to again begin with your own self awareness. I
Mm-hmm.
think that a really big mystery for most people. Most people are pining. They're pining at home. They're just thinking to themselves, "I want to uncover my triggers. What are my
Yes.
triggers? And I want to
Mm-hmm.
heal my triggers so then emotionally I can kind of understand, why is it I react, or why do I do this, or why is it when I get stressed out, the first thing I do is online shopping? Oh my
Yes.
God, I had a stressed out day. I've got to order a large pizza.
Yes.
Oh my God, the kids stress me out. I'm going to eat a half a carton of ice cream because that's comforting. So really, I think that the place to start is to start with your own self-awareness, and these exercises can be done on a very simplistic fashion. However,
Mm-hmm.
you need to take time for them.
Yes.
When was
That's
the
fair.
last time, we can ask ourselves, when was the last time I took account of my emotional states?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to journal. Journaling is a great release. But here's a pro tip. If you journal, you are going to actually start to see patterns of what's happening for you emotionally in your environment and everything, because your journal will have it all in there. So,
Yes.
so really, I think what I want to say here is that, yes, you're never stuck. Yes, you have options. Yes, you can heal yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can actually begin practicing what I would actually just say are practicing boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And just simply, a boundary may just look like, with that toxic friend that's always on you, wanting to dump their stuff on you or whatever, just say, you know what, it might sound like, what, I hear you. I hear you. I just can't have this conversation today.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think, my son, who's very into science, he mentioned, and I'm going to totally botch the language here, but he said anything that has mass,
Mhm,
uh, like has an orbit, or like anything can orbit something that has mass. I can't remember exactly what it was. And
mhm,
it just occurred to me that it is a scientific reality that as a thing that has mass, I pick up things and they circle me, all day long. And I
mhm,
don't want some of these things,
mhm. Well, you
but
have
instead
a
of flicking
choice.
them away. But yeah, this is the thing. It's that self-awareness, not even realizing that they're there, not realizing you have the choice to get rid of them.
Yes.
And living with them, with that unhealthy tune playing in the background, or that, like, what's that smell? I can't get rid of this smell kind of effect, right? Like, I don't know, it's just been a
Toxic.
bad day,
Mhm,
right? Yeah. So I think it's incredibly interesting to me how small things can have a huge impact.
mhm,
And I'll share another quick story.
mhm,
Years ago, working with probably the therapist who made the greatest impact on my life. And I'm a
mhm.
huge advocate for therapy.
Me too.
I'm not great at going to the physical gym, but the mind gym, that's my place.
Me too, friend. Me
Yes.
too. We're becoming besties here.
We
Yeah,
really are.
me too.
And
Ditto.
one of the things that I really struggled with is I would overeat when I was around people. And the better time I was having, the more I would eat, and I wouldn't want to put away the food. I would keep bringing out new plates, and we talked about this a number of times. And one time when she asked me the question, "What does this remind you of?"
Mhm,
you know it just reminded me. I suddenly remembered, as a child, my grandparents would celebrate every time I cleared my plate. And so if it was just a small group of us, everybody would stop and clap. Oh, Juliana ate 5 meatballs and a plate of pasta. Or if it was 40 people at the birthday party, Juliana ate 2 paninos. everybody, you know? And I thought, this is how I make people happy. I bring out food, I consume food, and we celebrate it. And I thought the good times end if the food ends. And
I see.
it's
I
just
see
so
that
funny,
correlation.
right?
Yeah.
It was just so funny because then as a grown-up, I couldn't keep behaving that way. Like I couldn't be like, oh, well, this dish is done. I'm going to go get another one because if it's done, then the joy ends. You know, I'm going to go get another one. I couldn't continue playing that game as a grown woman, knowing where it came from.
Yeah.
So these micro lessons, these micro awareness pieces really help.
I totally agree. And you know what? I'm right with you. I could do a ring around the rosy with you.
Yeah.
Same thing. You know, my mother is European. Same thing in my home.
Yes.
You know, I remember my grandmother telling me, of course, European. She lived with us in my childhood.
Yes.
She used to say, you know what, Bridget, you're such a good girl. You finished everything on your plate.
Yes.
I was
Powerful words.
Oh, wow. Well, if that's all it takes, yeah, give me everything. Whatever, just put it on the plate. I'll eat it.
Yeah.
The thing to really take away as we mature and become adults and we go into this type of self-discovery about, you know, what's behind the behavior.
Sure.
Is to really understand that we can change course at any given moment. And so it's normal and it's natural for us to change our mind and evolve. It's okay to evolve. And in fact, I would take it one step further and say, you know, the best relationships and the long-term relationships that are really working, it could be marriages, it could be just two buddies, it could be friends, you know, coworkers, whatever, are the relationships that allow growth. So what worked for me yesterday, you know, eating my pepperoni pizza or whatever, you know, it's not working today.
Totally.
And allowing yourself to say, yeah, you know what, this feels better. Like you had said, and I love that, is really bringing yourself into your true self-alignment.
And I don't need to feel like a stuffed turkey to feel aligned, for goodness sakes. It feels good to have a salad and stop.
You know? Totally. And that, you know what, the people that love you, you just being there, that's worthy enough.
Yes.
And they love us just when we arrive. Food or no food.
Yes.
That's the thing, right?
Totally. And I now know that there was so much psychology tied into the desire to have me eat as much as possible. You know, growing up during 2 world wars, during the Great Depression, this was a time of, you know, eat when you can. And if you saw somebody with weight on them, that was a healthy person. That was a rich person.
I was just going to say, you know, that was linked to wealth.
Yes.
You know, so that is actually a status, in fact, that, oh, you know, and, you know, most cultures do, you know, celebrate with food. Yes. You know, food can be quite passionate, you know, it's quite sexy too, you know, with couples and, you know, friends and the drinking. And so, you know, we do wrap that kind of enthusiasm and joy too around that. And I'm pro adventure and pro fun and all that. What we're talking about is when we start to notice unhealthy habits that we're not going to be able to really exercise in the long term.
For sure. Okay, so just as I try and wrap my head around a lot of the really great things that we've talked about tonight, I think I want to end on one specific topic, and you just said the key word for me: adventure. How do we make life the amazing, beautiful adventure as opposed to the military boot camp that you're squeezed through almost, you know, painfully? Because we want to accumulate the credentials and the self-worth. And I think we think the hard way is the only way to get there. So, you know, what's that relationship? How do we have that adventure and still accumulate all all of those precious things that make us into our best selves.
Yeah. Well, I think again, you know, I think I read an article last week, and this is kind of really bridging the question. I read an article on Bill Gates, and Bill Gates, I think I'm not sure, don't quote me on the actual years, but at least for the last 18 years, takes, I believe, 1 or 2 think weeks. That's where he basically disconnects from his family, his wife, his children, his business, and he goes away for a week. And during that time away, where I guess he's just, doing what he wants, waking up when he wants, he has a stack of books that he reads, eats, sleeps in, whatever you do, Mr. Gates. The point there is allowing the space to reflect. Right? And so, grinding is great. You can definitely be focused and get to your goals. But you know what cost? And so you can do that in your 20s and your 30s. By the time you're 40 and maybe your mid 40s or even 50, if you haven't addressed some of these reoccurring themes in your life, reoccurring themes. And again, that's very personal and it's private to most people. If you don't start exploring those and dissolving some of those limiting beliefs, like, I have to grind to get X, Y, and Z because that's the only way I can be happy.
Yes.
Well, who said that?
Right? And why did you decide to believe it? When did you decide to believe it?
Totally. And so what we want to avoid, but sometimes is the inevitable, and it happened to me, is we want to try and through, again, coaches, mentors, therapists or hypnotherapists, whatever your chosen vehicle would be, is we want to accelerate the knowledge and not necessarily go through the kind of painful spots that we're going to be grinding through. So to get more clear on that is we don't want to wait until something kind of tragic trips the wire, where we're like, we have an illness, or things become weak and deteriorated, not just in our body, but in our relationships, at work. A lot of children nowadays, there's a gap. There's a gap with their mom and dad because mom and dad are busy. Right? Yeah. And so children, although we talk about children being on phones and stuff, they're also being on phones because they can't connect to their family, to their parents. Mom and dad are checked out.
It's an inside job.
It's an inside job. And so really, I think that as a person explores these deeper depths of themselves and the layers that have made us who we are, those are the places that we're going to get the answers. And again, I want to just go back and really end on a super high and a super positive place. Don't forget, it's in your hands. It's an inside job. If you want adventure, choose adventure.
Yes. I love it.
And so, we're having an adult conversation, we're at age of majority, if we want adventure, whatever that means to us, we can create it right now. I can create adventure right now. What does adventure mean? I don't know. I'll take out 2 minutes, write it down on a piece of paper. If I allow my creativity and my imagination to run over me, let it run over me like a tsunami. When was the last time that a person allowed that's the problem. When we're grinding, we're not being creative. We're not allowing for reflection and the open pockets that create imagination and creativity. That's why when we look at children, they're like, yay, look at what I did. I drew this picture, and they're like, ah.
Yes.
We start to lose that.
Yeah, we want to have that joy. It's like coming home to a puppy. It's just we want these things in our lives because we want to feel these things, and we can.
And we're feeling people, and we should.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we enjoy those adventures, the more we enjoy the fun, the more that we have an open heart, the more
Yes.
that we have expansion, the higher vibe we will be, and really attracting those right people that are like-minded, because we're tribal people. We
Yes.
want to be around people that love us. We want to be around people that accept us. We want to laugh, 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 laugh.
Yes.
That's why the people that are living in the blue zones, they have these expanded chronological life frames, because they're around that. Community is a really big thing for us. I'm in it, I'm a part of COVID. I totally get it.
Sure.
But we can create all kinds of things, stuff like this. Juliana, this is
This is
incredible
an
that you're
adventure.
sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that with our family. We can do
Yes.
that, but really giving ourselves permission to do those things. And the last thing I want to add is really, really, really get clear on what you want, because you
Mm-hmm.
will get it. But is that really what you want?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And especially when it takes us a long time to get there, to put in all that time and effort and energy to get something that you don't really want. You just didn't stop and think about it, vet it, and be sure. That's just a shame and completely avoidable. Joy is completely within our control. We just need to push and
Totally.
pull the right levers, which is amazing.
Well, we can
Mm-hmm.
create it in a minute or two. We can
Yeah.
create forgiveness in a minute. We can create gratitude.
Yes.
That's shifting your blood pressure. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually changing the circulation in your brain. Stress is very, very damaging on the brain.
Yeah.
So, flipping it to joy and adventure, that's the root.
And it's just so interesting because we sometimes are so bad at naming an emotion, but
Mhm.
our bodies, it's not just
Mhm.
this thing that this like fluffy thing that kind of just floats out there. Emotions, our body knows exactly how to feel emotions,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
yeah, so you might not
Exactly.
be able to fully name your stress and how it's unfolding and why, and but if you don't, your body will process it, and
Yes.
that is not better.
It's not. It's not. And
Mhm.
that's really where a lot of time stuff now, people are really looking at that, and believing that, repressing your feelings, having resentment, being unresolved. I mean, some people actually link that to cancer.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure.
So,
For sure.
it's really difficult. So the best thing to do is create that happy place for yourself, even if it's for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah,
Going to
for
do you
sure.
good. And this is a marathon. We're not in a sprint.
Yes. And I think for me, that's what these shows are about. It
Yeah.
is an adventure for me. It's funny because I needed an excuse to make new friends again. And so I created my own excuse. I
Yeah.
created this show.
Yes, and you've made a quantum leap and a very courageous move. And you know what? You should be proud of
Thank
yourself
you.
for doing that. So, you know what? You're not only creating fun and informative information that's being shared and broadcasted out, you're touching other people's lives. And we don't always know how we're touching other people. So, you know what? You're onto a great thing, and I wish you well. And I'm so happy to have shared this last hour with you. Thank you to
Mhm.
my new friend. And yeah, it was just an absolute blast. I'm blissed out.
Awesome. I love it. I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in today. It is always such an honor. I say this every time, and I know it's not the most poetic thing, but you give me your eyeballs and your eardrums, and these are the most incredible gifts you could give me. So thank you so much for showing up tonight. And I hope you got the value, insight, whatever it is you needed, whether it was maybe even just a distraction. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me and my friend Bridget Tritt. All right. Bridget, you and I will do this again.
Okay,
And
love to.
Awesome. Okay, great. Perfect. I got you on camera now, so you're
I'm
committed.
totally in. I'll be here. Just, you know what, you reach out and it's a done deal. My pleasure. I've just had an absolute blast. Thanks for making it happen.
Truly my pleasure. And to all of you who made it happen, we couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful Friday evening. Go find some adventure, find some joy, and maybe think of one of our smiles while you're having a smile of your own. Happy Friday, everyone. Go be your smart self.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.